Hello and welcome fans and friends and viewers of the tube. My name is Super 8-Bit Ben, and today I'm going to bring you a Game Boy Collection video. So I've gone to the trouble of actually recording footage of each of the original Game Boy games I own. I know I originally promised to do a Game Boy Advance collection, but after doing this small amount of games I actually realised that a GBA collection may be impossible for me to do. What I might do is just, I guess, at the end of this video I'll show you the GBA games, but not show you footage of them because there's just far too many GBA games for me to cover. But I have recorded footage of my original Game Boy collection. So yeah, we're going to move on to that, guys, and I hope you enjoy the footage and hope you enjoy my coverage of each of the games. This has taken a lot of work and time to do. Kirby's Dreamland, oh my goodness, I think this was like my first game I ever played, ever, and it was certainly an amazing game to start with. You play as a pink puffball called Kirby. He's not any particular creature or anything like that, but this is his first game, and in case you're wondering, no, he actually can't copy enemy abilities in this game. What he can do is fly and actually suck up enemies and shoot them at other enemies, so his moveset is actually pretty basic in this game, but seriously, if you've never played any Kirby game, this is a great one to start with. Super Mario Land may have been the other game I may have played first. I'm not quite sure. This is an extremely early part of my life, so I'm not quite sure. But Super Mario Land is an absolutely classic Game Boy game. It plays just like the Super Mario Bros. Games, and this came before obviously New Super Mario Bros. So technically this was the first portable Mario Bros. Game, and it has all these weird characters in it. It has these weird power-ups, and it's just so unique, and it actually spawned a couple of sequels. Another game, I'm not quite sure about if it was my first game, but I'm pretty sure this one came much later on. The sequel to Super Mario Land. Now, I can't even express how much I love this game. It is definitely one of my top favourite games of all time. Again, a lot of weird characters and locations in this one, and I've played this game so many times. Now, unfortunately, my original copy got thrown out on me by my stepdad, but this is a copy I got from a shop called, I think it was a Game Trader or Cash Converters, one of those two shops. But this game's a bit like Super Mario World. In my childhood, this was my Super Mario World, and it's just so funny. So yeah, there's this weird game. I don't think anyone's heard about it this year, but it's called Metroid 2 Samus Returns. Obviously, it is the original version of the game that is being remade on the 3DS, and from what I could tell about this game, it's pretty bleak, at least for the original version. There isn't that much you could do in it. You're supposed to hunting all the Metroids, and I haven't really got very far in it, so I can't really say that much about Metroid Samus Returns, but it does have an interesting colour palette. Doesn't look too bad, and the animations are actually pretty good. And yeah, there isn't really that much I can really say about it because it wasn't one from my childhood. You know, I gotta say, this intro cutscene is actually really impressive for the Game Boy. I mean, it actually did sometimes have intros like this on the Game Boy, and this is of course The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. This is the original Game Boy, just the original Game Boy version. There was a color version that was much better, but I mean, the only real difference is just the color palette. I mean, it's very basic for the original Game Boy, and it still has all the cool stuff like that there. You could push the spiky thing for your shield, and I don't really see doing that in future Zelda games, so it's quite interesting. And I did have this game on my 3DS, the color version, so I probably should play more of that in the future. And yeah, there isn't that much I can really say about it because I haven't gotten very far into the game, but I do really like it as a retro Zelda game. Okay, so here's the game that kind of started me collecting original Game Boy games. Well, it was near the beginning at least. This is Mario and Yoshi. I think it may have been called Yoshi's Cookie. It's just it's kind of like Puyo Puyo or Tetris, you know, the sort of puzzle games where you have to match up characters or shapes and stuff like that, and you have to try to clear them all away before you stack them to the very top. So it's a very basic game, but I like it. I think Kirby's been pretty well known for experimenting with different types of gameplay styles, and here's one of those examples where he's in a pinball game which, you know, for a very round character, that actually works pretty well. And I do love a good bit of pinball, and I do love Kirby, so this kind of was almost made for me. And you can see here that you have some characters from Kirby's Dreamland making a cameo, which is awesome. Of course, you can't really have Kirby without those characters, so yeah. It's a very interesting little game. If you're a big fan of Kirby and pinball, I do highly recommend it. It is just, again, pretty basic, and there's only a couple of levels in this game, so it's not very long, so yeah. Okay, this is a bit weird and crazy, but growing up, whenever I played Kirby's Dreamland, I actually didn't know there was actually a direct sequel called Kirby's Dreamland 2. So I was like, actually kind of gladly surprised that there was like a game very similar to the original, because every Kirby game after this was very different, and you had the copy abilities and stuff like that. I don't think it was in this game, but I did enjoy playing this recently. Again, I only just kind of got this game this year, and this is the Japanese copy, by the way, so yeah, it's cheaper. This game is probably the closest thing to shovelware in my entire collection. I only have a couple of crappy games, but I was a big fan of Pole Position by Namco, and I'm not sure if this is by Namco or not, but it does play very similarly to the arcade game that I really liked, and it has goodness awful sound effects and has like no music, so it's kind of bleak, and it's in black and white, so it's very basic, and I really don't want to have to torture it much longer with this game. And this was another game I wasn't a big fan of at first, but I kind of gained a bit of respect for it one day when I was playing like in my bed with a magnifying glass thing on the Game Boy and a little light, and it just kind of brought that authenticity of the original Game Boy. And this is an interesting like top-down racing game, but it really isn't that good. Like, I really don't highly recommend it. I just kind of picked it up because I'm a Nintendo collector, but it's not a very good game unless you like those top-down racing type games. So leave it at that. This is another one of those games that I started off with in my early childhood, and you think, oh my goodness, this is going to be such a badass game from like the title screen, but then, well, you'll see in a second. Bam! You got Chibi Godzilla, and you got Chibi Gothra, and whatever you call the other characters, and it's so funny thinking back to I used to play this all the time and never beaten it. But he's got a fist that pokes out from his body, and it's just a very weird game, and not one I recommend at all, but I think it holds a very big place in many people's hearts but back in the day. But it just isn't a very good game. I would call this, you know, shovelware. For the most part, like, this probably just was made to cash in on the Godzilla name at the time, so yeah, the only reason I have this is just because I grew up with it, and this is one I kind of feel bad for not ever getting around to playing, but I have played another Pokemon game, which was Pokemon Yellow, and I really did like that one. I want to get around to playing this one at some point. But the thing is, I actually have the remake one that was on the DS, which is Heart Gold, which I should probably just play that instead of this, but maybe at some point I'll end up playing the original as well. Really nice intro, and you know, very nostalgic for lots of people, but not myself. I just think it's really cool though. I mean, if you haven't ever heard of Pokemon, you've been living under a cave, or in space, or somewhere that isn't Earth, because, well, the whole Pokemon Go craze. Pokemon Gold added a couple of things since the original, and I think it even had like the original's region if you beat this game's region, and like it was pretty interesting. There isn't that much I could really say about it because I haven't played very much of it, but this is a very like special game to many people's hearts. I can understand why, and I really want to get around to playing it someday. This game may become my new favourite game on the Game Boy, besides like Super Mario Land 2, because I was such a huge fan of Mario vs Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance. I didn't realise there was a game like it that came before it, and this is it here. It's Donkey Kong for the original Game Boy. And what's nice is with a lot of like, there's a couple of Game Boy games that have a Super Game Boy border. This is one of them, and it looks really nice. So I have to get around to playing this one someday. So yeah, we're going to end the video there, guys. If you enjoyed this, stay tuned for the next video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, but only do that if you want to. Also share.